Hey guys, and welcome back to the Q&A. So as always, if you have a question or anything like that, please leave it down in the comments and I'll get to it. Now, unfortunately, the first time I recorded this video, it did everything through the webcam's microphone, which was a problem because it all basically sounded awful. So this may not end up being as long just because, when you're going over yourself, that sort of tends to happen. But anyway, let's get on to the questions themselves. So the first one is from WoD, I think. And he says, do you think there will be a new Caverns of Time dungeon or raid anytime soon? If so, what would you like to see? Well, it's a very good question. First of all, I think that they could definitely do things to do with the First and the Second Wars. It would be really, really cool to go back in time and fight alongside with, say, Lothar against the original Horde. Which I think would be very cool. There's a lot of large battles that happen then, and quite a few different events, so that could be a ton of fun. Alternately, of course, if you're a Horde player, you could end up, say, fighting with Ogrim Doomhammer, because Doomhammer himself, okay, at that stage he was still in the more rampaging Horde, but he was still more of an honorable orc, and he's basically one of the guys who kind of, I don't know what the right word is. He didn't, mentor Thrall, but he certainly was an inspiration for Thrall. Hell, Thrall uses his armor and his weapon, or at least his weapon, the Doomhammer. So yeah, overall I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity in the First War, and also it's a story that hasn't been told since Warcraft 2. And Warcraft 1 and 2 they're old, okay? And first of all, and also the story that they were trying to tell in those games wasn't really done justice by the games themselves, just because of the fact that they're what, 20 years old now? 25? So you can't really tell that good a story back then, or at least they couldn't. If they bring that forward into World of Warcraft, just through some sort of Caverns of Time thing, I think it could really bring a lot more light to that story, and perhaps they could tackle it in a really interesting way. So, that's that. Also, the Draenei and Argus, I think it would be really cool if there was a raid where you could go back and basically fight the Burning Legion and the Infinite Dragonflight, and you're sort of helping out Velen, setting up the Exodar to fly away, or Oshu'gun even to fly away with. And just various things like that. I think it would be extremely fun, and visually they could just go to town on it and make it look amazing, because it would be the first time we'd actually get to see the Draenei homeworld of Argus, which by all accounts, technologically, and, well, not technologically in terms of, they have cars and shit, but, I don't know, that kind of, weird magic tech that Warcraft sometimes goes for, it's supposed to be stunning and massive, and a lot more advanced than anything we've really ever seen in the game, so it'd be really cool to see that. There is, of course, the problem where it's probably not going to be that meaningful to Horde players, which is unfortunate, okay, but, yeah, I guess that might limit this to being a dungeon or a scenario in which they kind of, race swap all of the, all the Horde players into Draenei or something like that. Anyway, next, I think there could be a dungeon out of, helping out Aurelia, Terulion, Khadgar, Trollbane, and the other expedition members, and I think that would be really cool. There's a lot of big events that happen during that expedition, and unfortunately, we've never really got to see many of them in-game today. It would be really nice if maybe, I don't know, the Infinite Dragonflight tried to screw up some of that stuff, and just give us a method to go back and explore some of that content, and actually see some of these characters back in their prime. Now, of course, that does run into the problem where if you're a Horde player, well, okay, maybe you're not really going to feel as connected with the whole thing. But really, the Alliance Expedition were nearly, I don't know, they were, okay, they are solid Alliance, but, I mean, they kind of, I could get the Horde not seeing that they were bad, because they were going and fighting demons. Or at least demonic forces, so I think that was definitely fair enough. And then next, Grom and Manaroth. I think this could be a fantastic, just one-off, single raid boss. Now, I'm not against anything like this, and I really like the things that Sartharion, stuff like Sartharion and Malygos, not Malygos himself, but just the idea of having this one boss that you can go and do, I think that's really fun. Also, having Grom and Manaroth would make a lot of sense in Warlords of Draenor, because it could be, it would be a way to communicate that story and what happened there to players who haven't played Warcraft 3. And at least they'll be dealing with characters that we can see the older versions of, and while we're inside Draenor, so I think that could actually work out quite well. Anyway, that's it for that question. Very interesting one, actually. I'm not really too sure what their plans are, but I think having just a number of raids and dungeons and things like that in there is really good, gives us an opportunity to go back, and really they can do some crazy interesting stuff with it, so hopefully they do fully utilize the Caverns of Time. Anyway, the next question is from Coruscant Gaming, who says, Q&A question, it seems like we're not going to see much of Vol'jin in Warlords of Draenor, which I hate. I want them to show him how powerful he is, and I want him to kill Garrosh with the arrow. As he said to him, what do you think they are planning for him? I know he has a big part to play in the rebellion, and we didn't really see much action from him. Thanks, and keep up the good work. Well, first of all, thank you, and it's a good question. While we may not see much story directly based in Vol'jin, I do think he's going to feature a decent bit. Kind of like in the way that we see Varian all the time as Alliance players, yet he's not really the main kind of character in the story in which he participates in. So I think it will likely be quite similar to Horde for the Horde people. However, there is one thing though, the Horde has their Thrall. And Thrall is often one of the guys who just gets a shit ton of story. Well, in the Alliance, that Thrall role is taken up by Jaina, Varisa, loads of different characters. I think they did a very good job of that. So, I think it would be hard having Vol'jin really kind of completely at the forefront in Warlords, because also Thrall is going to be there. He's going through that portal, finding his father and his mother and that sort of thing. So I'd be very worried that Blizzard will, as they kind of often tend to do, just lean things far too much towards the Thrall story rather than the story of the Horde, because Horde players like Thrall, sort of. I mean, they at least liked old Thrall. That's cool, but I think sometimes they put Thrall far too much to the forefront instead of letting the Horde stand on its own as a faction. It's as if they need Thrall to be there to say, hey, look, these are a really personable Horde, and they're not just the kind of bestial things that they look like, if you know what I mean. They don't need to do that, and they can just have this big old troll leading the charge. So I think that'll be cool. As for Vol'jin getting his revenge, I think what could happen is both Thrall and Vol'jin together track down Garrosh, and basically then Thrall gives Vol'jin the honor of the finishing blow, because, well, Garrosh did try to get him killed, so I think that would be fair enough. At any rate, though, Blizzard put Vol'jin at the helm instead of Thrall for a reason, right? So I'm pretty sure that he is going to play a decently major part in whatever goes on. The next question is from GraphsB807, and he says, from everything I gather, they will be doing a story with Sylvanas after the Warlords expansion. Also, it seems that they will be doing Aurelia and Trulion around the same time frame. What are your thoughts on the possible storyline and their interaction? Well, I'm not too sure how much they'll be able to squeeze Sylvanas in some regards. I can't see anything more than a smaller series of quests, at least initially in Warlords. Maybe if Aurelia and Trulion come back towards the end of this expansion, there might be one or two little nods to the relationship between her and Sylvanas, though I do think you're right, the expansion after that is the one time when we would see more Sylvanas, especially with Aurelia, who is her sister, coming back. They could definitely go a few ways with it. Sylvanas could find a little bit of her humanity when she finds her sister, and also it could be possible that Aurelia is completely disgusted with the stuff Sylvanas has done. She's really been going down that whole Lich Queen path, using, say, Valkyr to take over, to resurrect things, and in general, just doing a lot of really dubious things. Like, she's very sneaky, very sly, and even when it comes to the Horde themselves, I don't think anyone else really trusts her that well. So, yeah, there's definitely oddness going on there, and there'll be a lot of interplay between the three sisters. Now, come to think of it, though, Sylvanas is the only sister that is on the side of the Horde. So there's automatically going to be a little bit of strife between her, Illyria, and Varisa when they come back. Of course, Varisa and Illyria are both High Elves. They're Alliance High Elves, not Blood Elves, so that's the kind of side they're on. If they ever do this whole Lich Queen storyline with Sylvanas going mad, then I think the other sisters will definitely be involved, probably in putting her down. I think that if the whole Lich Queen storyline exploding coincided with Illyria returning, then there could be some great storytelling there, and just some really good character-based stuff. In terms of the whole Lich Queen thing actually happening, though, I don't really see it being a full-on expansion. But I perhaps, like at most, it would be a side raid or something like that. Still though, I think there's actually a really cool story there, and it would be nice to see how this Lich King, Lich Queen, Undead storyline carries forward, because right now we have Bolvar chilling up there in the Frozen Throne. It's Frozen Throne. Did I just do another Freudian slip? I may have. Anyway, so Bolvar's chilling up there, not much has really happened, and it's about the kind of the 5-year incubation period is nearly up, so something is going to come to the boil with the undead soon, and maybe if the Lich Queen storyline was maybe a side part of a larger overarching undead expansion, then I think that would be fantastic. Honestly, I love another undead expansion. I think the Wrath was great. The only thing is, where the hell would they put it? They can't go back to Northrend. They can't use that place twice, so I'm not too sure what they do there. Still, Sylvanas is a pretty great character, and it's a little bit sad that she hasn't really got as much of the limelight as she kind of deserves. I think they were actually planning on having her in 5.4 and 5.3 a good bit more than she was, but they ended up having to cut it just because of time constraints and that sort of thing. I guess when you're making an MMO, you have to stick to that rigorous patch cycle, and then often things just get cut. Another example is, say, in 5.3, Rexar was supposed to be there. I think it would have been great having Rexar as a part of 5.3. But anyway, let's move on to the final question. This is from Septarian, and he says, in Burning Crusade, some of my favourite mounts in-game were the Nether Drakes and the Talbooks. What do you think, do you think we might see new models for these mounts, or will there be new beasts, and if so, what type? Seriously, I am tired of Proto-Drakes. Yeah, I think you're fair enough to be tired of dragons, and Draenor is not a very dragony place. So far, the main kind of flying thing that we've seen from Draenor is the Chimera. The Chimeras in Draenor actually do look quite cool. They're a lot more sort of beastie and savage looking than what we see in Azeroth, so that's nice. They'll definitely make good mounts for the Horde, and I guess the Alliance as well, because they are just native animals to the region. In terms of other things, the Talbooks, I'm pretty sure they would be there, because they're just going to be chilling out in the ground anyway. As for the Nether Drakes, they are not going to appear. The reason for that is that Deathwing hasn't really, at this point in time, Deathwing hasn't managed to get his way over there and create the Nether Drakes, so they're not going to be there. In terms of other mounts, we have, say, the Nether Ray. The Nether Rays, to me, they look like some sort of sea creature that's been kind of twisted with all that twisting nether stuff. That was a terrible sentence, but whatever. Basically, they do look like sea creatures when you see them, and they are mainly found in Zangarmarsh. Now, one of the things about Zangarmarsh is that it was originally the Sea of Zangar, so certainly makes sense that since the Sea of Zangar is going to be a sea, then we won't have flying Nether Rays. Still, though, in terms of mounts, I think there's a lot of interesting things they can do. If we can, maybe some kind of like big primal winged bird of prey, I think that would be really cool. I think a break from dragons would be nice. And then in terms of other things, it really just seems like just animals. Unless... Okay, so one of the zones in Draenor is the equivalent of Netherstorm, and they haven't actually talked about it much yet, so maybe we find something over there which can introduce a mount, a bit like how, say, the Isle of Thunder introduced the dinosaur mounts in Pandaria. But, yeah, anyway, that's it for this episode of, not Warcraft Daily, the Q&A. Sorry if I'm, really not the best at talking today. I'm just kind of knackered, if I'm honest. Yeah, just getting other videos together and that sort of thing. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have a question or anything like that, please leave it down in the comments. Please drop a like if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next episode.